president just declared his political opponents terrorists, not in a war zone, not in a dictatorship, but in a nation that holds elections. Uganda's Yoweri Museveni, 81 years old, just won a seventh term with 72% of the vote. But the story behind that number is tearing the country apart. African observers are condemning it. The internet was shut down. So, what really happened? Is this a legitimate victory for stability, or a stolen election that crushes democracy? Some say Museveni saved Uganda from chaos. Others call this the death of its opposition. Who's right? The answer matters for the entire region. To understand this explosive moment, you have to go back, way back. Yoweri Museveni took power in 1986 after a guerrilla war. He was hailed as a new kind of African leader. He brought relative stability after years of tyranny and civil war. The economy grew. For decades, the argument was simple: Museveni equals peace and development. But that was then. Fast forward to today. Museveni is now one of the world's longest-serving leaders, and the opposition has grown louder, younger, and more frustrated. The key figure is Bobi Wine, a pop star turned politician whose real name is Robert Kyagulanyi. He represents a generation that has known only one president. In the 2021 election, Wine was arrested, his supporters were shot in the streets, and the internet went dark. Museveni won again. Now in 2026, the cycle repeated. But this time, the rhetoric has reached a dangerous new level. Calling your rivals terrorists isn't just an insult. In Uganda, it's a legal designation with severe consequences. It can mean indefinite detention, frozen assets, and a justification for lethal force. This isn't just about an election anymore. It's about fundamentally redefining political dissent as a national security threat. The central tension is clear: is Museveni protecting the state, or is he protecting his power by destroying any alternative? Let's start with the government's perspective. Supporters of President Museveni argue he is the indispensable guardian of Uganda's hard-won stability. Proponents point out that when he took over, the country was a basket case. Idi Amin's brutality was followed by chaos. Museveni brought order. He built institutions, attracted foreign investment, and made Uganda a key counter-terrorism ally in the region, especially against groups like al-Shabaab in Somalia. His supporters say this election, like the others, was a reaffirmation of that legacy. They argue the 72% landslide is real. They claim it reflects a silent majority, especially in rural areas, who value peace over political experimentation. The official line is that the opposition, led by Bobi Wine, crossed a line. They didn't just campaign, they allegedly incited violence. Government spokespeople have pointed to isolated incidents of unrest, of tires being burned and roads blocked. From their view, calling this behavior terroristic is a justified response to protect public order. They argue the internet shutdown was a necessary, temporary measure to stop the spread of fake news and incendiary messages that could spark wider violence. The core argument from Side A is about preservation. They see a volatile region, look at the coup in Niger, the conflict in Sudan, and ask, why risk Uganda's peace? Museveni, in their eyes, is the experienced captain steering the ship through stormy seas. The opposition are reckless agitators trying to rock the boat, and the state has every right to restrain them. As one pro-government analyst might say, in the developing world, stability is the first prerequisite for democracy. Museveni provides that foundation. But wait, there's another side to this story. Critics, however, see it completely differently. They don't see a stabilizing force. They see a regime clinging to power by any means necessary. Opponents counter that the 72% figure is a fantasy, manufactured in an atmosphere of sheer repression. They point to the pre-election environment: opposition rallies banned or broken up with tear gas and live ammunition. Key opposition figures arrested on trumped-up charges. Media houses intimidated. And then, on election day, an internet blackout. How can you verify results, they ask, when the digital lights are turned off? The African Union and other observer missions didn't buy it either. They criticized the process as falling short of democratic standards. But the real escalation, critics say, is the terrorist label. This isn't just tough talk, it's a strategic move. By legally framing the opposition as terrorists, the Museveni government can justify any action against them. It allows for asset seizures, travel bans, and long prison sentences under anti-terror laws. It effectively criminalizes the very idea of running against the president. Bobi Wine and his party are now operating in a space where campaigning could be construed as a terrorist act. The other side argues this has nothing to do with real security. They point out that Museveni has used similar rhetoric for years to tarnish opponents. They see it as the final stage of a long slide into authoritarianism, where elections are just a ritual to legitimize permanent rule. The impact. It sends a chilling message to every Ugandan who dreams of change. challenge the state, and you're not a citizen, you're an enemy of the state. So who's right? Let's look at the evidence. Let's step back from the heated claims and look at the cold, hard facts we have. The central data point is that 72%. On its own, it's a huge margin, but data needs context. In the 2021 election, Museveni officially won with 59%. A jump to 72% is statistically dramatic. Experts note that such increases in incumbent vote share, especially amid widespread reports of repression and an internet blackout, are immediate red flags for electoral integrity analysts. The blackout itself is a critical piece of evidence. Internet shutdowns during elections are a well-documented tool for information control. They prevent independent verification, stop the flow of images and videos of irregularities, and cripple citizen oversight. It's a fact that makes the official results inherently difficult to audit. Next, look at the international reaction. While some regional bodies may offer muted statements, respected global and African civil society groups like Human Rights Watch and the African Election Observers Network have documented a pattern: the systematic use of state violence, arbitrary arrests, and a tilted playing field long before votes were cast. The evidence on the ground suggests an election held under duress. Furthermore, when we compare Uganda to its peers, the data suggests an outlier. Very few countries with a per capita income and development profile similar to Uganda have a leader entering a fourth decade in power through consecutive electoral contests. The expert analysis from political scientists points to a competitive authoritarian model. It has the forms of democracy, but the substance is heavily skewed toward the incumbent. The numbers, the shutdown, and the comparative context don't prove fraud in a courtroom sense, but they create an overwhelming pattern that makes the official 72% result deeply questionable to independent analysts. The reality here is more complex than either side fully admits. It's likely true that Museveni retains a genuine base of support, particularly among older generations and in areas that remember the pre-1986 chaos. The fear of instability is a powerful motivator, but it is also overwhelmingly evident that this election was not free or fair. The terrorist rhetoric isn't a spontaneous reaction to violence. It's the culmination of a long-term strategy to delegitimize opposition. What most people miss is that this isn't just about Bobi Wine or one election. It's about closing off the future. By legally equating dissent with terrorism, the state is building a framework where political change through the ballot box becomes conceptually impossible. The uncomfortable truth for the region is this: Uganda, once a darling of Western donors for its economic progress and regional military role, is now showcasing a manual for how to dismantle democracy while keeping up the appearances. The international community, including regional powers like Kenya, faces a dilemma. Do they prioritize stability and counter-terrorism cooperation with Museveni, or do they champion democratic principles? Often, they try to do both, issuing mild criticism while business continues. This analysis suggests the 2026 election marks a point of no return. The social contract in Uganda has been rewritten. The state offers security not from external threats, but from the political choices of its own citizens. For ordinary Ugandans, this means living in a tightened space. Young people, who are the majority, see their economic prospects dim and their political voice extinguished. The brain drain will accelerate. For the businessman, the terrorist label creates fear. Supporting the opposition, even privately, becomes a risky calculation. For the rural farmer who supports the president, there may be short-term relief, but the long-term cost is a political system with no accountability. What's next? Watch the legal maneuvers. Will opposition figures be formally charged under anti-terror laws? Watch the economy. Will donors like the World Bank or the European Union, who have cut aid before over human rights, take any tangible action? And crucially, watch the streets. The youth bulge in Uganda is not going away. Repression can contain anger, but it doesn't address the grievances that fuel it. The prediction is for more of the same: outward stability, inward tension, and a growing disconnect between a powerful, aging leader and the future of his nation. So we're left with the central debate: strongman stability versus democratic freedom. Uganda's election shows that clash in its rawest form. Now I want to hear from you. Where do you stand? Are you team stability, believing Museveni's experience is crucial for Uganda and the region? Or are you team democracy, convinced this is a stolen election that sets a dangerous precedent? Drop a comment below. Let's get a debate going. Share this with someone who needs to see both sides of this critical story for East Africa. Subscribe to Kenya News Update today for more breaking news.